Welcome to A Woman's Heart. I'm looking forward to this conversation. We have Shauna Parker with us today. And thanks so much for joining us today, Shauna.
Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. We are connected through a mutual person who has been on the show, and she's absolutely amazing. So I am excited to meet you and get to know you. And I would love for the listeners to get to know you as well. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and something fun that isn't normally in your bio.
For sure. So my name is Shauna. I am an Christian inspirational speaker.
Okay.
I get to share my powerful story of surviving a near-death experience and overcoming 7 years of a deep depression
Mm,
that God used for his glory, and he led me on a path to obedience and clarity in my purpose.
very
Um,
good.
Something fun about me is I love to ride motorcycles with my husband, and I also like to hunt with him. So
Okay.
more likely I like to spend time in nature.
Oh, good. Well, good. It's nice to be out there in the air, and that is fun. I'm a little too much of a chicken. I kind of like all four wheels and a little bit more around me, but I have heard that it's great feeling. I'll stick to bike like regular bicycles and stuff like that. So, but I understand it is a lot of fun. And you mentioned that you had a near-death experience, and that kind of triggered a lot of this. So let's go ahead and start there. And you really do have a passion for helping women to kind of come out of that fog, shall we
Yeah.
say, and really find their calling and go for it. And we're going to get into that too. But I'd love for you to kind of start at the beginning because that seems to be where really God got your attention.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like he's always been tugging at me all my life because
Mm.
I have seen things as a child that I probably no child should see.
Mm.
I almost witnessed my mom being murdered right in front of me and my brother.
Oh, wow.
But even, incidents like that throughout my childhood and my early adulthood, for whatever reason, I just wasn't allowing God to get my attention. And then in 2009, when I gave birth to my second child, I was already scared. I was terrified going into it. And the nurse comes in and she tells me that I'm dilated to a 10. It's ready. It's time to start pushing. And I did what any mom in labor would do. I wanted that baby out of me. So I started pushing. It wasn't really too long. The doctor comes in, she checks me, and she immediately I had to stop pushing. I was
Mm.
only dilated to a 6.
Oh,
So the nurse and my doctor go out in the hallway and they started bickering back and forth. I could hear them bickering back and forth about who was right and who was wrong. And finally, my doctor comes back with another nurse and they confirmed that I was only dilated to a 6. So already being scared, my doctor gives me two choices. I can either go back for an emergency cesarean, or I can wait until I'm dilated to a 10 and risk my son being born with cerebral palsy.
oh,
So, of course, I did what any mom would do. I chose the emergency cesarean. Um, and my doctor, I will never forget this. It was like it just happened yesterday. She asked me, did I have any questions? All doctors are going to ask you have any questions.
mm-hmm.
And this is such a big procedure, and I did. I only had one question, and that was, what is the chance of death? And
Oh,
I could tell by the look on her face that she had never been asked that before. I don't know how long she had been a doctor. She was middle age, maybe, but I could
mm-hmm.
tell by the expression that she was taken back, or at least I caught her off guard.
Yeah.
And after she gains her composure, she answers with a very confident, "Oh, just 1%, and that's if you're under, which you'll be awake, so you have nothing to worry about." And
Oh no, that's like the famous last words kind of
yes,
thing where in
yes.
the movie they go, I don't know.
Yes, it didn't give me any kind of relief, let me tell you, because I don't even think she made it out of the room and I was praying,
Yeah.
God, Jesus, please forgive me for my sins. You please come into my heart and save me. I was praying all the way back to the operating room, all the way through the procedure till my son was born. I think
Hmm.
that was like the distraction to when I stopped praying. And I honestly thought I was out of the woods at this point.
Yeah.
Um, I kissed him on his forehead and I asked him to count his fingers and his toes. The next thing they were weighing him. And then the next thing I know is my doctor is waking me up and she's asking me who the president of the United States is. And she's waking me up again and asking me what year it is. And I remember being so tired. Like I had never in my life experienced
Mm.
this type of exhaustion before. I don't know if you've ever seen a movie where like somebody's passing away and they're just so tired and the other person's like, just stay with me, stay with me.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I know what that person is feeling like. They just want to sleep. Like it's an exhaustion. Like I don't
Mm.
even know how to explain it.
Wow. Wow.
And I remember thinking, why won't she let me sleep? I just want to sleep. So she wakes me up the third time and she explains to me that I had hemorrhaged and I lost a
Oh,
lot of blood. And if she didn't do an emergency hysterectomy right then and there, I would die. But she needed me to understand I couldn't have any more children.
oh, wow.
And, just really, I'm going to be honest with you, I just wanted to go to sleep. That's all I cared
Mm.
about in that moment was sleeping. That's how exhausted I was.
Wow.
And I just told her, do what you have to do.
Yeah.
And as I slipped away that one last time, it got really dark. And it was different this time. I wasn't just going to sleep. It was really, really dark. And it was like, you hear those stories of near-death experiences.
Yeah.
People have a brief meeting with Jesus.
Hmm.
Or
Some do
sometimes,
and some don't. Yeah.
yeah, sometimes they see bright lights, or sometimes people get a glimpse to heaven.
Yeah.
I didn't experience any of that. For me, it was the exact opposite. It was just complete darkness.
Wow.
And it was so dark. I don't even think a blind person could find their way through this darkness. It was just so dark and so thick. But I
Wow.
remember I didn't feel anything. I don't remember really having any thoughts or just anything. I was just there. But I was searching for a wall. I don't know why, but I was searching for a wall. And back in the operating room, I must have been moving my hand because I heard this really stern voice, and it was like really far behind me. And it said, Shauna, I need you to stop moving your hand. And it was like it snapped me out of that darkness. And I was back in the operating room and I opened my eyes just enough and I seen that the nurse was trying to put an IV in my hand.
Oh,
So I must have been moving my hand while
yeah.
I'm searching for this wall wherever I was. And for a long, long time, I thought that I was on my way to hell because I had a very checkered past.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until years later that I think I was just dying. I really believe now that I was just dying. And I
Wow.
was, just going to wait for Jesus to come back. Um,
Yeah.
but I had such a checkered past and I had a hard time dealing with that's what I really believed for a long time. And it sent me to a 7-year depression because I didn't understand why God saved me.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, that would definitely be very unnerving. I have had people that I've know of or know that have been very close, and actually one who was pronounced clinic, he definitely was like dead for 30 minutes before they were able to bring him back. And he has no recollection of anything, but I know someone else who was very close and was in a induced coma. And she did. She had a conversation, said it was beautiful, it was peaceful, and had a one, just was like, okay, I really, there's things I still want to do, but if I'm here. And there's also stories of people who have experienced a darkness or even demonic kind of presences, and it's very, very unnerving. But so
Yes.
there's a lot of different experiences. They're not all the same, but there are a lot of similarities in some, and I can see where that would be very upsetting. And you said there was like a 7 year depression, and it was just based off of, that whole checker pass and everything coming up. And what did you do? You mentioned that God had really gotten your attention and you really felt him calling you to that. What were some of those things when you were in that depression that you did to, shall we say, keep moving forward and not stay there, even though it lasted a
So
long time?
yeah. So during that 7 years, I loved to read.
Mhm.
And I didn't, like I said, I didn't know why God saved me. I was believing that if I had a purpose or a calling that I'd already destroyed that I messed that up already.
Mhm.
So I just really wanted to be happy again. So I would go to the library and I would get stacks of self-help books. And I would just read all the time.
Yeah.
Or I would watch movies. One time I watched The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith. I watched it 17 times in 1 week, just
Oh my gosh.
searching for something in that movie to give me,
Yeah.
tell me how to be happy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find anything. So one night I was reading yet another book. I was laying in bed
Mhm.
reading a book. I couldn't sleep because if you're depressed, you can either sleep a lot or you can't sleep at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
It's
was,
all about extremes.
yeah, yeah, one or the other. I was reading a book and I said I just had this like vision in my mind, like this. I see myself standing in front of a group of people and I was encouraging them and I was talking to them and I knew in that moment that I had purpose.
Mm.
And but I didn't really know what it meant. But from
Okay.
that point moving forward, I knew that I was supposed to be a speaker. And this
Okay.
was 11 years ago. Um,
Wow.
So I just kept that in the back of my mind. I would talk about it to people. I started telling strangers that one day I was going to be a speaker. And mind you, I had absolutely no idea what it meant to be a speaker, what it took to be a speaker. They probably thought I belonged to a Looney Tune somewhere because I
Well,
just
and
knew.
sometimes that's how it works.
I just held on to that. Um, and over the years, I tried to get there, and then I would take a different path. I'd take my own path. I'm going to be
Uh-huh.
honest. I think we all do that a lot because being obedient is hard,
Yeah,
um,
it can be.
especially when you don't know the next step.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, and I love how God gave you that picture. So it was still something that you could hold on to when you were like, wait a minute, is there? You're like, no, I have this that he said. And it can be so frustrating at times when it's you kind of have that, but you don't necessarily know what the next step is. You're like, okay, I'm trying to do something, but then I'm trying. And I think I know the answer to this. Do you think God used that time in between where you saw the vision, you didn't really know, and now you are? Do you think He used some of that time to teach you different lessons that you needed to know now that you're where you're at? And what were some of those lessons?
Absolutely. He was using that time to mold me into the person that I am today. Because one, it takes a lot. Well, it doesn't take a lot to be a speaker, but it takes persistence, it takes consistency, it takes
Hmm.
self-discipline. It does take a lot.
Yeah.
And I could not have been the speaker I am today. I could not have been that speaker back then.
Hmm.
One, it was so hard for me to even talk about what happened to me. Like
Wow.
I couldn't talk about it to anybody because I think I had like this what they call it survivor's guilt.
Oh, okay.
I think I had a little bit of survivor's guilt going on, and then that why me? Who am I?
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
just me. Um, and I had such a hard time with that. But over the years, he took me and he took me through steps, and some of those steps are, I had to lose everything. Literally, we lost our house, my car, even our cell phones. I
Oh
was a
my.
single mom. Um, my son was about 4 years old. I divorced his father after he was born, became a single mom of two. lost everything. I shared a twin mattress on my parents' spare bedroom floor with my 7-year old son while my teenage daughter slept on their couch.
Wow.
And it was on that mattress that I had my breakdown. And I told God, I said, okay, I don't know why you saved me, but I know that it was for a reason. I had this vision. I don't know what that entails, but I know that your plan is better than mine. And I surrender it all to you. And it was a matter of time. I was working 3 jobs at the time. And it was a matter of time I got a really good job that I really loved. And so I only had to work 1 job, thank goodness.
Yay, that helps.
I yeah. I ended up meeting my now husband. We got married, we got, our own place. Everything was going really good. And then 2020 hit. I
Uh,
was laid off from that really good job.
mm,
And nobody was hiring because it was 2020.
yeah.
And that's when I was like, okay, God, this is my time. I need to step into what you want me to do. And I did not know at the time, again, how to become a speaker. So every time I mentioned it to somebody, they were like, oh, you would be good as a coach, or you would be good doing this. And I would listen to them, and that's the path they would take.
Uh,
But again, God used all my mistakes for his glory. And it
yeah.
could have been him walking me through those to get me here
Yeah.
because I became a Christian coach, and then I became a coach trainer for the company that I got certified through.
Okay.
And he used that to help pay for the speaking training that I went through. So I do feel like even if it's whether it's our steps or his steps, he can use it for his glory for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, he can. Well, and as you mentioned, that then doing those, even though that may not be the ultimate, step or destination that you're going to, he used that, like you said, that was the income you needed to then do the speaking certification
Right.
to do that. And you mentioned at one point you do a workshop about finding your calling, where you walk people through different things. So if they're kind of struggling with what you were struggling with, was why am I here? And I don't think you have to have a near death experience to wonder that at times. You can just be kind of going through life going, nothing major happening, but why? What, and they really want to get fired up about and feel like they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're doing what they're meant to do. And what are some of those steps? You mentioned like 5 core things that you walk people through when they're searching for their calling. So if somebody's out there going, oh, this would be great. I would love to, what are some of those things? Because I really don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I get to that, I just want to mention I was doing some research and it said that it's 89% of Christians struggle with their purpose. I actually
Wow.
believe that it's a little bit higher than that because I see Christians all the time, and this is my heartfelt concern, is
Mhm.
I see Christians all the time that they're in a job that they absolutely hate. And instead
Yeah.
of thanking God for that, for where they are and allowing Him to use that to get them where He wants them to be, or maybe He's already asked them to step out and do something and they're being resistant to it,
Yeah.
and then they're stuck and they don't
Yeah.
know where to go next. I mean,
Hmm.
even Moses was resistant, you
Yeah.
know?
Moses argued pretty
He
seriously with
argued. He
God.
tried to
No,
talk
no, no,
himself
no.
out of it. And a lot of people in the Bible have. And
Yeah.
that's why I believe that statistic is a little bit higher than 89% because especially now it's more important than ever
Hmm.
to be obedient and, do what God is calling you to do.
Yeah.
But those 5 core components is your love language. We all have a love language. And our love
Yes.
language is how not only how we want to receive love, but it's also how we give love.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, because
Yeah.
if that's how we receive love, we're far more inclined to give love that way, even
Yeah.
if that isn't our partner's love language. And so here we are, we're just doing what comes naturally to us because that's how we receive it. So that's our strength. So that's what we're doing. And then they're going, yeah, I really appreciate that. But somebody related it to me with if somebody is really thirsty and they really want a glass of water, and you go, here's a brownie. Well, brownies are nice. I really like the brownie, but I really need a glass of water. And but no, but here's a sandwich. No, but I want water. It's
Yeah.
not that what is being offered is bad or not even wanted. But it's not really what they need in the moment. So that the love language would definitely play a part in it, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's so important that you understand what your love language is, at least your
Hmm.
top two, so that that's the first step. And then once you know that, then we move on to your spiritual gifts.
Mm.
And
Okay.
like for example, my spiritual gifts is exhortation, which is encouragement.
Hmm.
I love encouraging other believers, other
Yeah.
people in general.
Hmm.
And then my second spiritual gift is discernment.
Ooh,
So, and
that's a good one.
they go really well, especially with my love language, which is words of affirmation. I love when people speak true, they encourage me through words of affirmation,
Hmm.
and I do that to other people. So it just like makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And then the third one is passion-driven pursuits. That's what
Okay.
you love to do.
Hmm.
Um, and then after passion-driven pursuits, it's aspirational goals. Aspirational goals is not what most people think it is. It's who you want to help, how you want to help them.
Okay.
And then after aspirational goals is heartfelt concern. And heartfelt concern is that one thing that bothers you to your core that you wish someone else would do something about. There's a song by Matthew West called Do Something. And
Yep.
in that song, there's some lyrics where he raises his fist at God and he's asking God why. And he's like, why don't you do something? And God says, I did. I created you.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's what your heartfelt concern is all about. And when you put all five of these together, what they just come together and then it makes things so clear who you're supposed to help, how you're supposed to help them, and how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how you put all of those together and and it doesn't necessarily equal a veterinarian or a career, but I think you can take a lot of those things together and you can put them in a lot of different careers. So it's not necessarily that they're going to be a speaker or a writer or have a ministry and have a platform, but it could be that they use all of these gifts maybe in a different career, or maybe they can then just embrace the career that they're in, but really embrace the parts that they enjoy in that. Does that make any sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because a lot of people think that their purpose is what they're supposed to do as a job. That's
Mm,
not always necessarily the fact. God works in mysterious ways. It could
yes.
be he could be calling you to be a stay-at-home mom.
Hmm.
Maybe
Yeah.
you make some money doing something on the side to help bring some income in, but that's your main calling.
Yeah.
Maybe you're I'm trying to think of a really good like a TV anchor or something. Maybe your love language is words of affirmation. You could the way that you speak when you're doing your job, you could be encouraging someone and not even ever know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just, I mean, God works in such mysterious ways. Sometimes I just sit back and I'm just like in awe.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And one of the other things that you've mentioned obedience and you've mentioned that you've had that faith. How did they actually play out in, going through the struggling for the 7 years, and how did your faith and then the obedience walking through step by step, how did that play into it?
How did obedience play into
Yeah,
it?
how did your faith play into it, and then also because there's a difference. You can have faith but not necessarily obedience.
True.
Yeah.
That is very true.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think my faith has definitely been it was not always strong.
Okay.
There was a time in my life when I was very angry. I would ask God for something and I would turn around and go do the opposite, not believing that he would do it.
Hmm.
That was not being obedient nor faithful. I think over the years as he was molding me and when I really surrendered to him, that's when I think faith is a choice. You have to choose to believe.
Hmm.
And then obedient is kind of the same. You have to choose to be obedient. It's kind of like your parents when they're asking you to do something. Are you going to be obedient and listen to them and do what they're asking you to do? Or are you going to take us, your own path and do whatever you want to. It's
Yeah.
no different with God. It's a choice. I really do believe it's a choice. Just like faith, I believe faith is a choice. You either
Yeah.
believe or you don't.
hmm Yeah, and I can see where you kind of need the faith in order to obey, but the faith alone doesn't really put anything into motion. And
No, you,
you can kind of sit there, but until you obey, and the obedience is the action part in my
yes,
mind.
there isn't there a verse, faith without action?
Yeah, faith without works
Um,
is dead in
yes,
James.
yeah, yeah.
Yes,
And
everybody loves James. He's so practical and he really steps on your toes.
sometimes we need that.
Yes.
You definitely have to take action, especially if you have faith. And we can't just believe that, ask God for something and just believe that it's going to
hmm
happen and then it happens. I
Yeah.
think that is such a misconception, especially in our world today. And
Yeah.
it's got a lot of people blinded.
hmm
I'll be nice about it. It's got a lot of people blinded.
Yeah.
Um, you have to take action. That is the
Yeah.
obedient part. You have to take action on what you are being faithful about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm kind of curious, through your coaching and training and now speaking, is there anything in particular that you have noticed? Wow, you know what? Everybody is unique in what they're struggling with, what they're going for in that. But are there one or two things that you find, man, so many, like this is a really big one that a lot of people are struggling with, but like a mindset or something like that that they really kind of struggle with. What have you noticed is one of those that a lot of people struggle with?
It is definitely mindset. A lot, and I
Okay.
think it's what I believe it is because it's fear. You don't
Mm.
know
hmm
what's going to happen if you take that step, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
The fear of the
Is it,
unknown.
yeah, is it going to play out like you want it to? Is it going to take you somewhere
hmm
else? It's the fear of not knowing. Again, like Moses, when he was, yeah, he wasn't really, I mean, in a way he was arguing with God because he was trying to talk his way out of it.
Like, I
So
believe you're God, but I don't want to do what you're telling me to.
exactly, he was fearful. I mean, he was getting ready to go up against Pharaoh. He was scared.
Yeah.
He, and I believe that that's where we are when we're not being obedient. It's our mindset because we're believing the lies of the world. We're
Mm.
believing we
Yeah.
can't do this, we're not worthy. Two of the biggest ones is a lot of people say unqualified, but there's also disqualified. A lot of Christians don't
Ah,
understand that they feel disqualified. So
okay.
disqualified is when you're dealing with your past sins, your unforgiveness, things like that.
hmm
Unqualified is when you feel unworthy. You
Okay.
feel, those types of things. So
hmm
I think that's the first step is understanding why you're feeling that way. And then you
Okay.
have to work past that. But
Yeah.
that's like it's such a huge pattern I have seen.
Yeah. Well, and I loved because my next question, and you mentioned that he equips the called. He doesn't call the equipped. So as far as being qualified, if he calls you to it, he'll give you the means to. It may take a little longer than you want, but he will give you what you need to do that. And he's wired you uniquely so that you can do what he wants you to do. Even though you go,
Yeah.
oh, if only I was wired a little differently. I've gone through that. If only, well, God, if you wanted me to do this, well, you should have made me like that.
Yes.
But he goes, no, I made you the way I did for a reason. And you're so passionate about helping women to find their calling. So I know you will love this question of what would you say to encourage someone to go ahead and pursue that passion that God has placed in their heart?
I would say to, just focus on your heartfelt concern because
hmm
I believe that that is what God is calling you to. It's that one thing that you wish somebody else would do something about. Maybe you wish God would do something about it, but He made you for that reason.
hmm
And like you said, when He created you, He gave you exactly what you needed to do that. Like the personality, everything. I was listening to an episode with Marnie earlier, and I
hmm
loved what she said about people are always being told to niche down. Or maybe you said it. I can't remember who said
No,
it, but
she said that. She said
okay.
people were telling somebody else that she needed to niche down, and Marnie said, that's not how you're wired.
Yes. Yes, and
Yeah.
it's so true. You stop trying to be like other people.
Yeah.
God created you uniquely. He created
Hmm.
you for a reason. And something else, sometimes you have to be careful who you tell the vision that God has given you to.
That's
Like
true.
Joseph, he shared this with his brothers, and look what happened to him. It's the same with fellow Christians, fellow believers. People get jealous because they wonder, why didn't God call me to that? They're
Yeah.
so blinded by what he called you to that they don't see their own calling that God is calling them to do.
Yeah.
So I would say stay in your lane, just listen to God. I believe we all know what we're called to do,
Yeah.
whether
Deep,
we are
deep
fighting
down.
it or not. We know what we're
Yeah.
called to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe we're kind of wandering around, the water's a little muddy. We just kind of have to let God sift some of that out and clarify it. Well, Shauna, if someone wants to get in touch with you for writing, for coaching, speaking, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Through my website at shauna-parker.com.
Okay, very good. Well, Shauna, thank you so much for sharing your story and being obedient and pushing through to your heartfelt desires. And that we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you for having me.